There you
Right,
go.
hello guys. Hello, I'm Charlie Tolhurst. Welcome to Charlie Tolhurst Show for day 20th of May. We are live now, yes. Hello everyone. Welcome to the Charlie Tolhurst Show for the 20th of May, broadcasted on a Friday this week. As I will be as I'm busy this weekend and I've got other commitments to do. But there will also be some special YouTube content coming up this weekend as well, which will be interesting on Chaz the Squash. Joining me tonight on YouTube to run up all the latest from the world of news is my friend and political commentator, Zach Chambers. Hello, Zach.
Hello, Charlie. Hello, mate.
Finally, we're on now. Let's talk about the latest news now as we come on. Now, tonight, let's talk firstly not in about Russia's invasion of Ukraine, but on the Queen's speech. Now, unfortunately, Her Majesty the Queen was not there for the first time in something like 58 years. So it was Prince Charles who took the throne, reading out stuff, reading out legislation on what the government have proposed for their agenda. The Conservative government, led by Prime Minister Boris Johnson, talking about new legislation that will be brought in and being discussed in Parliament. One of them being to do with windfall tax, also the cost of living crisis being mentioned heavily on the Queen's speech. But I think another thing as well that will be really important that I think needs to be highlighted is the asylum bill, which I think has been through Parliament, is to address this Rwanda plan that is so far, in my view, not going down well in the channel. More migrants still crossing, and there have also been plans to house refugees in churches and RAF squadrons in, say, parts of Yorkshire, for example. Zach, what do you make to the Queen's speech, and what do you make to the government's Rwanda plan?
Well, let's talk about the Queen's speech first of all, Charlie, because there was one thing that was missing out of it, Charlie, and that was obviously the cost of living crisis, which is currently happening and is still going to happen. It's going to happen for quite a while, Charlie. That's been missing out in the Queen's speech. Obviously, Labour was quick to, and other opposition parties were quick to jump onto that. That was totally missing. There was nothing about that to do about the cost of living in the short term, Charlie. I know there was a bit of a debate about it because obviously when the Queen's speech is done, Charlie, over 5 sitting days in Parliament, you normally get 5 themed days and those sort of things, Charlie, to tell you what's going on those sort of days. And I think there was one day, I think it was the Monday that was assigned to the short-term cost and long-term cost of living as well in the Queen's speech, Charlie, as well. But there's nothing in terms of the way of bills, actually, Charlie, in terms of the short term. That was all I'm missing. But this is basically a year for what's going to happen over the next year, Charlie. I think from my understanding, there was about 38 bills in the Queen's speech last week. And mate, one of the key things that the government have included for the long term, levelling up a regeneration bill, giving councillors new planning powers, forcing landlords to let out empty shops, the transport bill. It's going to be a new state-run agency to regulate railways, business rate changes in the non-domestic rating bill, new legislation to set up the UK Infrastructure Bank, next stage of HS2, I know was in there, the high-speed rail crew to Manchester bill. In the digital media bill, Charlie, there was key ones in there as well. We know the online safety bill, that was one of them, the media bill. That includes a key measure to privatise Channel 4 and allow Ofcom to regulate on-demand services. Data reform bill to repeal some EU rules on data protection. A greater digitalisation trade-related paper electronic trade documents bill. The telecoms infrastructure bill extending 5G. Digital markets competition consumer bill to tackle fake consumer reviews. The national security bill, Charlie. This is one of the ones I think is interesting to look out for. It gives new powers to the security services,
like the police,
and the public order bill. It's going to introduce new powers, Charlie, over disruptive protests, including, for example, if you blockade a motorway or sit on a railway
Oh yeah,
station.
Today Britain was talking about that during the week. Liam Norton was on Good Morning Britain, I think.
Yeah, something like that as well. And there was the protect duty bill to consider the risk of terrorist attacks in public places. I noticed the government made a lot about Brexit freedoms. So I'll give you an example. Brexit freedoms bill overhaul EU laws, a bill of rights, a new bill of rights to replace the Human Rights Act. They are also, Charlie, bringing in legislation potentially to sort out the Northern Ireland Protocol. Now, that wasn't directly in the Queen's speech itself, Charlie. There was no reference to that. But Liz Truss did say on Tuesday this week that she will introduce legislation over the next few weeks to address the problems of the Northern Ireland Protocol, Charlie, as well. And there's also, I think, in the education-wise as well, this is another thing that the government make out, new schools bill, giving the regulator power to crack down on unregistered schools, introduce attendance records, a higher education bill, to make loans available to students at any stage, higher education, freedom of speech bill to ensure legal rights from free speech are protected, conversion therapy. That's a controversial one, Charlie, because there was talks about the government has sort of been ooh-ahing on this one. Excuse me, because there was talk to them banning conversion therapy completely. Then they kind of U-turned and said that there will be no conversion therapy ban. Then they did kind of U-turn quickly after that because of backlash, saying, well, we're going to ban conversion therapy, but not for trans-related matters. That's a controversial in its own right, so a lot of people still aren't happy about that. So let's go through the rest of it. Energy security, boosting renewable power, animal welfare bill, animals abroad bill to introduce ban on imported hunting trophies, which has actually not been included. The genetic technology bill relaxes the gene edited crops.
Conversion therapy.
Yeah, conversion therapy. I think we just mentioned that as well, Charlie. As well, modern slavery bill.
We could go through all of them tonight. Trust me, there's so many.
I could whether there's just I'll give it a clear example of what's in it though, Charlie, just so to make sure what is going to be debated over the next year, legislative year, Charlie. This has got a whole year, so we've got 38 bills to get through, and not all of them. You never know, Charlie. Not all of them will get laid down on the records, Charlie, because some of these bills do get put over, or they don't get debated because of backlash. So there's 38 of them, but it's possible not all of them are going to be debated.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, I think, to see how all these bills get debated and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. Well, I'm going to play for you a quick clip from Prince Charles because, unfortunately, the Queen wasn't there. So Prince Charles took on the role as the person who's reading out this massive list of new laws. And here comes the video I'm going to play from Sky News. Right now, this is a report as Prince Charles reading Queen's speech, a hugely symbolic moment for the UK. Have a listen to this.
Well, Rhiannon Mills is outside Parliament for us right now, and you could sort of see on Prince Charles's face, I think, as he delivered those lines. Actually, I wonder if he wonders whether the Queen will be able to attend these events. She's clearly looking forward to them, but as we see, the monarchy is flexing, and other people are coming in to assist her at the moment as her mobility falters.
I think today was again a reminder of how, over the years, we have become so used to Her Majesty the Queen carrying out her public services and duties and enjoying relatively good health. And yet now we have a monarch who herself has admitted in recent weeks and months that she is having trouble standing and walking. And as a result of that, the royal family, the palace, and also the public are going to have to get used to seeing younger members of the royal family increasingly stepping up and taking on some of her responsibilities. And I think, yes, we will see that around the Platinum Jubilee weekend. But if we look at today, it was a hugely symbolic moment, and I think it will be seen as one of those defining moments for the monarchy when historians look back at these twilight years of this Elizabethan age. There has been this softly approach to transition, and yes, we have seen younger members of the royal family already stepping up and helping the Queen. Things like Prince Charles laying her wreath at the Cenotaph for Remembrance Sunday, other members of the royal family carrying out investitures and also doing those overseas tours on her behalf. But today was the first time that really we've seen younger members of the family taking on what is a key part of her constitutional role. And the decision for that will not have been taken lightly. Literally, until the 11th hour, we were told that the Queen herself wanted to come, she planned to come. But as I think we've seen in recent weeks when it's come to things like the Commonwealth Day service, the Maundy service, events where she would have to walk great distances or sit for a long time, and this again would have been one of them, practicality has simply had to kick in, and that's what's happened with this one. And it was always going to be interesting for constitutional experts and the likes of you and I to see exactly how the Queen wanted this to play out. And I think those constitutional experts, some of them were puzzled and surprised by the fact that she decided to use that letters patent, so that change in the rules to mean that two councillors of state, so her son and grandson, would carry out the responsibilities today. But that ultimately is the way that she decided it should be. And we are seeing the Constitution flex and change to deal with an ageing monarch, although the palace very keen to point out that this is not a monarch who is looking at abdicating. If you look at her accession day speech that she made, accession day message that she delivered in February this year to start the Platinum Jubilee year, once again, she reaffirmed her commitment to serving her country and the Commonwealth. But today she has handed over, maybe just for this year, we're going to have to wait and see, but that important constitutional role of making sure that the parliamentary session could still get underway despite the fact that she wasn't able to appear here in person. But yeah, the palace very clearly also saying that yes, she's having trouble with her mobility, but it is still going to be the Queen who will have a virtual session with Privy Council this week. It's still going to be the Queen who is going to speak to her Prime Minister, and ultimately it was her son and her grandson who were jointly opening Parliament today. However, I think the problem is, and for those who talk about this being a regency, a Prince Regent situation in everything but name, the optics today, seeing Prince Charles front and centre, it did look more like a regency situation than I suspect the palace would necessarily want to. But ultimately, that was how the ceremony played out, and the palace stressing that she is still very much in charge. And certainly when it comes to Platinum Jubilee, she will still be the star of proceedings.
Thank you there to Sky News for that report on the Queen there as well. So that was the Queen's speech report there from Sky News regarding Prince Charles reading out the legislation and a list of bills that will be presented to Parliament. Now, moving on from that to the war in Ukraine now, can I say the Donbass not looking great if you're in Ukraine because Russia have destroyed part of it. So far, more bombardment continues. And Zach, an update on Mariupol. Looks like Russia have seized control of that major city.
Yes, it looks like the case as well, Charlie. One of the good news is, though, I have to say, is there was many people that were trapped in that Azuru plant that was basically bombarded. There was many Ukrainian soldiers that were trapped in there, Charlie. They have thankfully been rescued, although it looks like they've been taken to Russian-owned Donetsk territory, which is controlled by Russian separatists. So that's a little bit of a problem there, Charlie, because they're under some sort of Russian control, regardless of what's happening there, which is obviously a massive shame, Charlie. No doubt about it. Is a massive shame about it. But yeah, there's obviously some. Obviously, you can see there, Charlie. Russia have they've cleared the remaining Azov fighters and they've now surrendered, Charlie. So it looks like that Russia do have some potential. So Russia have made potential control of Mariupol, Charlie, which obviously is unfortunate. And for strategically for Russia, it is a big deal, Charlie. So yeah, it is a big deal for them, and it's important. It's important because for Russia, they can get a land border between Crimea, the Donbass, and then into Mariupol, and to links to the Black Sea as well. So it's a big win for them, you could say in some ways, Charlie. But it brings about other problems as well, Charlie. Unfortunately, which are significant.
Yeah. Also, as well, this Finnish brewery launches new beer marked to join NATO application.
That's a cool little brewery. But yes, Finland and Sweden, Charlie, launched officially submitted their bids to join NATO this week, which is hugely significant because once again, Charlie, as I was saying last week as well, that this has been a strategic error for Vladimir Putin. By invading Ukraine, he thought that you could scare the likes of Sweden and Finland from joining the alliance and punishing them. Finland are getting their natural gas supply being cut off very soon, which is obviously quite not good news, Charlie. But in terms of what's happened in the application, yeah, I mean it's good news that Finland and Sweden have applied for NATO because they should be able to control their own destiny. They've normally been a defensively neutral country, Charlie. They've normally not joined defensive alliance. They've sat on the fence on this sort of thing. But seeing the Russian invasion of Ukraine, Charlie, it's important because they want to join defense alliance. Now there is one roadblock, Charlie. I should point out this. There's potential roadblock because Turkish president. I can't remember pronounce his name, but the Turkish president has kind of claimed that he may object to Sweden and Finland's NATO bid because of potential. I think what he's complaining about is there may be some Kurdish forces in Finland, Charlie, and then he calls them terrorists and all that sort of thing. So he may object on that basis, which is worrying because it feels like sometimes that Turkey's falling for Russian propaganda in some ways. But I hope it's to the point where it's only Turkey that are bluffing. And I hope he doesn't block it just for the sake of that, because that would be extremely disappointing, Charlie.
Yeah. As well. Also more news in Ukraine. Ukraine defenders told in Mariupol to stop defending the city. Basically, according to this, lay down your arms and go home. And also this week, it's been reported that Canada has imposed further sanctions on Russian oligarchs, people close to the president, who is Vladimir Putin. It will be 14 individuals, family members of Putin's girlfriend, etc. Meanwhile, they'll target the import ban of Russian goods, including alcohol beverages, seafood, non-industrial diamonds, while the export ban will, with such as large luxury goods, such as footwear, luxury, and jewellery. In a statement, the Canadian government said these individuals have been directly enabled Vladimir Putin's senseless war in Ukraine and bear the responsibility, pain, and suffering of the war in Ukraine at the moment. Now, Volodymyr Zelensky says he wants to replace the world's biggest plane destroyed by Russia. Is that what you make of this one?
Well, I think it's brave, Charlie. No, I think it's brave. Good idea. It was the Anarvov An-225 Mira that was destroyed, Charlie. It's worth $800 million. Is that dollars? I think it's $800 million. I think that is worth, Charlie. So, yeah, very brave if they want to replace that. I think it would be great if they do replace them. I mean, if they can defend a whole country and replace all of that city, Charlie, then they can certainly replace the plane. Let me just tell you that. There's the news of the Kharkiv explosions, Charlie, because Russia, whilst they've been pushed away, they have continued to try and target Kharkiv, which is the second largest city in Ukraine, Charlie. As well, there's been 7 injured according to this. As well, that's the CCTV footage today showing explosions there. they're still going after it in Kharkiv, Charlie. I mean, there have been some areas in the eastern Donbass region they have been pushed back, and if they can't get their own eastern Donbass region right, then God knows how they're going to get any other area right. To be fair, Charlie, as well, they've also fired at a school where 200 children were sheltering, Charlie. This is a horrible, quite evil, wicked act of action by Russian forces and Putin once again. And to see them children being targeted, it's just totally not on, is it, Charlie? It's totally not
war
on.
crime as well, I think.
Yeah, it's horrible. Absolutely, it's a stupid act, Charlie. It's another example of war crime, as well. There's another company that's exited Zurich, Russia, by the way, Zurich. McDonald's is one of them that's been decided they're going to stop doing business in Russia and going to find a new buyer instead. Zurich is another one that's decided because of the war they're going to stop doing business in Russia overall. I mean, good for these companies. Good for these companies, Charlie. I mean, it took them long enough, but I think you reap and sow the consequences. Russia need to reap and sow the consequences of their actions. And I'm not surprising that nobody wants to really be dealing with those sort of services, Charlie. Considering Russia's actions as well. And look at all the destruction here, Charlie. It's another set of destruction that's been as well. So it's horrible destruction there, Charlie. As well, there's a bit of Spain saying that it will support Ukraine's EU entry as well. I mean, if Ukraine can't get NATO, they may instead try joining the European Union. Germany came out with a statement saying they're not going to rush it, which doesn't suggest they're supporting it, but not exactly opposing it either, Charlie, as well. So that's all the latest from the Russia-Ukraine roundup today.
Yeah, there is a few more things because the guy, there was this, last week we spoke about this tank commander who got charged with murdering a 67-year-old man on a bicycle.
Yeah.
He's been jailed now, apparently. He's going to potentially be jailed for life, which I have to say, I don't blame him because that is a war crime targeting civilians. And Zach, what did you make of this interview by the mayor of, I think one of the mayors of Kyiv and former boxer Vladimir Klitschko's interview on Piers Morgan Uncensored?
Yeah, I mean, he's been pretty much saying the same thing all the time that, supply people, Ukraine with weapons, as well. And it's important as well, Charlie, that they keep doing that sort of thing, Charlie, because, the more weapons that Ukraine get, the more, the more that it can defend themselves. I mean, for example, Charlie, this week, Congress has passed a 40 billion pound package in Ukrainian aid, as well. Charlie, Klitschko also thanked the UK for all the supply as well, because I think it's clear to see, Charlie, that Ukraine has been particularly impressed with the UK's effort as well, Charlie. And Vladimir Klitschko went on Piers Morgan just to say, that was really it. Really many thanks, Charlie. So yeah, he went on, discussed a lot about what's going on in Ukraine at the moment. He thanked the UK and Boris Johnson particularly, Charlie, as well. And they also did a little bit of banter about the boxing as well, Charlie, because with Vladimir Klitschko, you always get a little bit of boxing in there with him. So I didn't see the full thing, but I know what some of the stuff he said. It was interesting. A very nice, long, wide-ranging interviews with Piers Morgan as well, Charlie. Which, by the way, Piers Morgan is not having a good ratings, is he? He's been lower than GB's News in the 8 p.m. slot, which against Mark Stein. So it's not exactly going down swimmingly well for his TV ratings. I think Rupert Murdoch might need to wake up, as sometimes Piers Morgan say, and realise that the ratings are crashing a little bit, unfortunately. So yeah, he needs to hurry up on that one and make some potential changes as well, Charlie. This is also as well, I think this is an interesting article you got up as well, Charlie. It's about a Russian colonel who dared to criticize Putin's Ukraine invasion on state TV. He's now changed his tune. Obviously because he's obviously been told what to say by the Russians now. He thought he'd get away with a little bit of freedom by saying what he wants. But, yeah, he's obviously now changed his tune. Because he did actually go out there and proper criticise, Charlie, the Russians and how they were doing on their
Yeah,
own
he did.
state
Massive.
TV. And now, unfortunately, now that he's obviously been given the Russian earpiece orders, he's changed his tune. And it's not surprising, to be fair, Charlie, because he probably doesn't have the balls to stand up for what he really thinks, Charlie. So he's now changing the tune to, get his own way. But yeah, and if he wants to be in the good book, so yeah, it's not surprising on that front, Charlie.
Yeah, well, the guy's name in question is Mikhail Kondryak, a former Air Defense Minister, made a startling U-turn. He boasted that Russia's superior weaponry, military aeronautical capabilities, but he directly contradicted comments he made less than a week ago on state TV. Previously gave a damning assessment of Putin's invasion of Ukraine. I have to say, actually, when he said that, I'm on your side, mate. But then he changes his mind. You've got to go in Russia. It's inciting propaganda on state TV that says that there was someone on the state television, I think when the invasion launched, who said, "Stop this war. You're killing Ukrainians. Ukrainians are dying." And then the presenter went, "Stop. We're doing this war to protect the people of Donbass, protect our Russian speakers." It is stupid. It's stupid. These people are hypnotists. These people need to understand that a war, as what Vladimir Klitschko said on Talk TV the other day, people will die because they're being attacked in a innocent way.
It's not just Donbass they're attacking as well, Charlie. They've tried to attack Kyiv, Kharkiv. They're nowhere near Donbass, Charlie. So it's not just about that as well. They've attacked everywhere they can, really, Charlie. They've even attacked Lviv as well, which is many well away from Donbass, Charlie. So they've attacked everywhere they possibly can, Charlie.
This is all Donbass. Let's say that. 2014, they annexed Crimea. 2008, they invaded Georgia. I think 2015, they went for Syria. Chemical weapons was another factor of that invasion. I think that was also to help support one of their prime ministers over in Syria as well, to help bolster their defences. Well, if you think Vladimir Putin is the new Hitler, think again, because he is a new Hitler in my view. This is the new Hitler, the new war machine who spreads propaganda like a pile of, just like a pile of jelly, really. He swashes from one side to the other. He knows now that he is going to face a needless bloody war with Ukraine. And Zach, the comment Volodymyr Zelensky said the other day was that this war by Putin has been a total failure from his side.
Yeah. As I said, Charlie, it's rare that you hear comments like that on state TV, but they're actually daring to say that. And rightly so, Charlie. Rightly so. It's obviously not without changing their tune a few days later, but they are actually daring to say that sort of thing. And there is actual disagreement going around on state TV in these panel shows, Charlie. They're normally scripted. They're normally told what to say. They normally agree on what to say. But, it's incredible how much dismay there is. Even with Putin's old prop-ups. It really is. It's absolutely right, Charlie. Russia's failing this war. They're not winning the war. They're strategically losing the war. And they're not going to win this war, Charlie. Ukraine are going to win this war. And I have high confidence of that.
Yeah, I think the Ukraine will win, but Russia will still fight back with all their arsenal they've got left.
Yeah,
Let's not say that missile they launched again today, Smarat 2 again, boasting on about missile launches and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Just to say that they're going to want to try and destroy it. Then you've got these harrowing reports of them trying to target the UK and the US with these big missiles saying we're going to blow us all up to smithereens. Well, that ain't going to happen unless some daring act happens. Well, it's called propaganda for you guys. But yeah, that's all I can say on the news front at the moment. More later in the show on that, and also something else regarding what happened on the tube later in the show. Quick update on the sport briefing now. And we're going to start with the latest action from F1. Mercedes, Zach, having a very decent day, I have to say.
Yes, Charlie, they're having a really good day today, Charlie. We said that last time around when it was in Miami on the Friday, Charlie. But it appears to me that they actually had a good day. The proportion, Charlie, is not there at the moment. We haven't seen it at all, and to everyone's surprise, and they could be in contention this weekend, Charlie. This is the sort of circuit, Charlie, I think that would suit Mercedes because it's much more slower. It's a bit more bendy. It's not as fast as you say Miami or something like that. There's more sections to the circuit that will suit Mercedes a lot more. But also this track will also suit Ferrari a lot better as well, Charlie. And Charles Leclerc was fastest in FP2. I should point out I'm using my phone because my keyboard has decided to suddenly stop decided to play up on me, so I'm using my phone for a bit. I'm still can talk to you loud and proud, Charlie, which is good news. But it was Leclerc today that was fastest in FP2 ahead of Russell and Hamilton. Russell has been clearly the number one ahead of Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes battles this year, no doubt about it, Charlie. And it continues to be so as well. As you can see there, Ferrari and Red Bull are close on race pace, though. Red Bull can make up on race pace. I don't think they'll get pole position tomorrow, I don't think, Charlie, because I don't think this track suits their car as much. And Ferrari have had particular updates as well to the car, Charlie, as well, which is very important as well. They've done a few upgrades to the car, very important as well, Charlie, especially on a track like this. I think it was Mattia Binotto was saying they could get 3-4 tenths out of the car, Charlie, based on this upgrade alone, which is very fast as well. But race pace is very, very close. Mercedes is still off, Charlie. Look, 6 tenths still off. They could do better on the Sunday, as we know, Charlie, but they're still off as well. It may well be that Red Bull Ferrari are the quickest in the race pace, Charlie. But it'll be interesting to see what they do qualifying tomorrow, because I think Mercedes could be up there a little bit more as long as they can get the car together. I mean, they were good in Miami on Friday practice, but they failed to translate that when it got to qualifying, Charlie. Their qualifying simulation, they're a little bit slower, but I can see them being up there this time, Charlie. I really can see them up there based on today's performance. FP3 has still got questions to answer, but it's looking good so far for Mercedes. It's looking good so far for Ferrari as well, Charlie. Red Bull, I think, got a little bit of work to do as well, Charlie, ahead.
Yeah, but also Aston Martin brought some massive updates to their car. If you remember 2020, when they brought out this, known as Racing Point, brought out this copycat to a Mercedes, we all had our head scratching. Well, Aston Martin have unveiled significant updates. So the AMR 22 features new floor, new side pods, engine cover, rear wing, and a slight change on the halo. Was all given clear by the FIA after governing body launched an investigation over some parts, reassembled those of another competitor. That was Red Bull, that they're calling that. On track, it looked like a good improvement. Sebastian Vettel was one of only 2 drivers to achieve his ideal lap, to suggest he felt comfortable with the car, saying he thinks that they're heading in the right direction. And while that wasn't translated on the timesheets, they were 8th in both the short and long run rankings, and were focused on gathering data for the new parts rather than a chasing performance. So it's clear to me, Zach, that Aston Martin look like they're showing some potential.
Yeah, absolutely. There's certainly some upgrades for the car, Charlie. Now, there was obviously, as you said, some controversy because it looked like they copycatted the Red Bull car, Charlie. And Red Bull, the FIA have checked on this. They've said no problem so far, Charlie. But obviously, Red Bull have wanted more clarity from what's happened from the FIA as well, Charlie, because if they copy something like the IP and elements as well, then that could be a really serious offence, Charlie, that they could write about. So yeah, it's a big concern if they have been copying, Charlie, but it looks like there's no evidence yet that they have.
Yeah, so whilst we're here, I'm going to play for you a quick video released by WTF1 over some of the upgrades coming to the Spanish Grand Prix from all 10 F1 teams. Have a listen to this.
The major upgrades each F1 team has brought to Spain. With the Spanish Grand Prix this weekend, a lot of F1 teams have chosen this particular race to bring some rather major upgrades. With the introduction of F1's new show and tell system, we don't have to guess anymore about what each team has brought. They all have to be completely crystal clear with the FIA as to any changes they make each weekend. Whether you agree or disagree with this system, it's given us an insight into which teams have introduced more to their car than others. Let's start with Haas, shall we? You know how I mentioned loads of teams have decided Catalonia is the track to bring major updates? Well, as I look at the document now, Haas have brought absolutely nothing to this weekend. Gives me 2021 vibes. Next up, we'll go to Mercedes, a team that really needs some changes and fast if they want any hope of challenging for this year's title. They've changed a few things for this weekend, including the front wing end plate, which is designed to improve flow to the rear of the car, the floor edge, which a lot of other F1 teams have already been doing, where they have added a slot to the outer edge, which they hope will improve floor performance, the rear corner in an attempt to increase overall diffuser load, and finally, Mercedes have modified the floor body to generate local load in the middle of the car. Let's move on to the Red Bull team, who have been eating away at Ferrari's lead over the last few races. Sad Charles Leclerc noises. And they've not changed all that much, actually. Some minor changes, including a new flap to the front wing and an amendment to the floor body to try and improve the total pressure on the upper surface of the floor. Since we just mentioned Ferrari, let's talk about their upgrades. They are coming into this weekend with high hopes to be back at the front with 3 particular changes. The first 2 changes are for the floor body and the rear corner of the car, both of which are aimed at improving the overall aerodynamic performance. And finally, and more noticeably, they have introduced a new higher downforce top rear wing for this weekend, specifically to adapt to the Catalonia circuit. Moving on now, we head to the team of Lando Norris and Daniel Ricciardo, McLaren. It's funny, a lot of people are saying, oh my God, Ferrari bringing such huge upgrades. But when I look at this FIA document, Ferrari have brought 3, and fair enough, they are pretty major. McLaren have brought 10. They've changed the front wing, front suspension, front corner, floor body, coke/engine cover, cooling loops, rear wing, rear corner, side pod inlet, and diffuser. It could mean good things for all you McLaren fans, but it also opens up the possibility of at least one of them maybe not working as hoped. Alpine have brought 4 upgrades to this weekend. They've changed their rear wing in order to bring more downforce to this particular race, their front wing end plate to also generate more downforce and improve flow behind the front wing, and 2 changes have been made to the rear corner of the car, making minor tweaks to the brakes in order to improve aero performance. Now, a big talking point of this weekend already is Aston Martin. They've done it again. If you've watched F1 for a few years now, you would have seen when Aston Martin, formerly known as Racing Point, did a cheeky copy of the 2019 Mercedes for their 2020 car. This time, however, they've done it during a season and taken inspiration from the current Red Bull. In total, they've brought 8 upgrades, which include the floor body, floor fences, floor edge, side pod inlet, coke/engine cover, cooling louvres, rear wing, and halo. Before you all say that teams aren't allowed to change the halo mat, all they've gone and done is add a vane on top of the halo to improve airflow to the rear of the car. Will the green Red Bull make its way up the grid? Only time will tell. Our next team is Alfa Romeo, who have also brought 8 upgrades. It really is the Spanish upgrade GP this weekend, isn't it? These include the front wing, front suspension, 2 for the coke/engine cover, floor body, cooling loops, rear suspension, and rear wing. One that I found particularly interesting was one of the coke/engine cover upgrades, where they've redesigned the mirror to embed sensors used in practice sessions. Williams are up next, and they've brought 3 upgrades, 2 of which are specific to the Barcelona circuit, and that's a more loaded front wing to help the balance of the car, and a more loaded rear wing to suit Catalonia's characteristics. Finally, they've adjusted the rear corner of the car to include a new group of winglets on the rear brake duct, which is there to help change the airflow around the rear of the tyre. Last but by no means least is AlphaTauri. I left them till last because they have one very simple change this weekend, and it is to the rear wing and has been brought in, just like other teams, specifically for this high downforce track in Spain. There you have it, an insight into all the upgrades the teams have brought for this weekend. Who is your
Thank you there, WTF1, for the updates there. And Zach, what did you make to that video of Matt Gallagher announcing the upgrades for the teams?
Yeah, it's obviously quite a lot of upgrades as well. Obviously, the Mercedes ones, they brought some new floors, Charlie. Very crucial, obviously, to fixing their proportion issues as well. Ferrari have obviously brought their new upgrades as well. It's very interesting. Well, not much on the Red Bull, particularly as well. Alpha have obviously changed tiny little things as well. So this is the track, Catalonia, Charlie, where you are going to start seeing upgrades. It's quite clear on that, Charlie. Because this is a track that's commonly used for testing, and it's just the right time of year that people start bringing their upgrades, Charlie. So you will see a lot more of this as you move on through the season, Charlie. There's no doubt about it. Yeah,
and one message I have to the organisers at Circuit de Catalunya: future races, please remove the final chicane in the future, because I have to say, when it was added in 2007, it has hampered racing. When we're getting dirty air, and you say understeer or oversteer, you lose time. It makes overtaking very difficult. I love the old layout where they used to race together, and you could get some pretty good passes done into turn one. I mean, this year's cars should be okay with the new regulations allowing for closer racing, but we don't know. Action will be on Sky Sports News this weekend, Sky Sports F1 this weekend. I think the race is around 2:00. I will just double check. Yeah, 2:00. British summertime now. On Sunday. Qualifying will run tomorrow. So moving on now from that, Formula One, we're going to go to NASCAR next, Cup Series racing. And that was at Kansas. I have watched the race, so I can tell you what happened. It was Kurt Busch's first win of the season. And Zach, many drivers suffering loads of punctures.
Yeah, there's especially some leaders, Charlie. I watched some of it as well. There's definitely a lot of leaders, Charlie, that were especially in a lot of punches as well. With the red tyre, obviously being a key aim, Charlie, as well. Unfortunately, for a lot of drivers there, Charlie, which is very unfortunate as well. So it's a big shame of what happened to some of the drivers there, obviously, but. It was a result of something. But Kurt Busch, as you said, Charlie, was the first one to get the victory this weekend as well. He finished just ahead of Kyle Larson in second as well. And Kyle was in third, so top three for the Busch brothers. Hamlin was fourth, Christopher Biff fifth, Truex is sixth, Ross Chastain seventh, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. eighth, Alex Bowman ninth, Darrell Wallace Jr., Bubba Wallace 10th as well. BJ McLeod, Josh Haley was the one that unfortunately DNF'd. And the likes of Corey Ware, Daniel Suarez, Everton, JJE, Tyler Reddick, Chase Elliott as well, having a few issues as well. Not a good race for him in 29th. There's a lot of issues for certainly on tyre wear, Charlie, as well. But this weekend, Charlie, I should point out, moving on, it's All-Star Weekend, Charlie, at Texas Motor Speedway. So I'll tell you how it's going to work, Charlie. This is the race where drivers can win up to $1 million. This is a non-points race, so this does not affect the championship. It's just a free-for-all, get as much money as you can race, other words, if you want to call it that way, Charlie. As well, there's two races. There's the All-Star Open and there's the All-Star Race as well, Charlie. For the All-Star Open, there'll be 50-lap races into three stages, 20 laps, and then 10 laps at the finish. Each stage will advance to the All-Star Race, in addition to the fan vote, where the fans are going to vote for their driver to advance to the All-Star Race via voting as well, Charlie. If the fan vote, when it advances through a stage, or in the driver, the next highest vote counts towards the All-Star Race. So if you're in second, you could still get in, but that's only if the fan voted driver wins a stage, Charlie, as well. Then it's for the All-Star Race, which will be at 1:30 a.m. in the morning, UK time, Charlie. So unfortunately, I'll be asleep. It'll be 125 laps, split into 4 stages of 25 laps, 25, 25, 25, and then a 50 lap at the end of the race as well. Stage one winner will in will start on the pole in the final stage, and as long as he finishes 15th or better in stages 2 or 3, then it's the second stage, which is 25 laps. Stage 2 winner starts the second in the final stage, as long as he finishes 15th or better in stage 3. Then there's a special stage break. Each team must pit and perform a 4-tyre stop. The team with the shortest time pit road wins the pit crew award, and the driver will start 4th in the final stage, as long as he finished 15th or better in stage 3. Stage 3 is 25 laps. If they win that stage, they'll start in 3rd. And then the final stage is 50 laps, where the stage 1 winner will start 1st, stage 2 winner 2nd, stage 3 winner 3rd, and the pit stop competition winner starts in 4th. If a natural caution occurs between laps 50 and 25 of the final stage, standard race procedure will effect. If no natural caution occurs during the time, NASCAR will call an all-star competition caution. And the winner, Charlie, will win the overall race and win $1 million, Charlie, as well. So it's a fun weekend of action, Charlie, as well. The Xfinity and Truck Series races are also at Texas, Charlie, for normal points races as well, Charlie. So there could be points on the championship on the line as well there. As well, but the Cup Series race is there this weekend, Charlie, for $1 million prize. It's going to be a fun little race. It's going to be a lot of fan interaction as well, Charlie, and there's just money to play for. It's just it's a nice fun race, Charlie. No points are involved. It's just prize money and a bit of fun racing.
Yeah, the next Cup Series race will be the Coca-Cola 600 at Charlotte on the 29th of May. Same day, Indy 500 is on as well. And the Xfinity race will be the Xfinity race at Texas, Camping World Truck Series race at Texas. I do have the results from Kansas whilst we're here. Zane Smith taking the win there in that race. What did you make of the Camping World Truck Series race at Kansas?
Yeah, I didn't see much of it, Charlie, but Zane Smith is a name we keep hearing quite a lot often, Charlie, as well, for his very consistent results. I mean, it was another good victory for Zane Smith as well. Another decent drawing for him as well. I mean, it's pretty clear, Charlie, that he's very good at this as well. Zane Smith, an upcoming star in the Camping World Truck Series as well, and he's very he's going to continue that good run throughout the season, Charlie, no doubt about it.
Yeah, so they all go next week to Texas, but for the NASCAR Cup Series, the next championship race is on the 29th of May. Before we move on to do Charlie's good news, the Indy 500 launches a week on Sunday, the 29th of May, live from Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And Zach, qualifying, I believe, starts next week, I think.
Tomorrow.
Oh, tomorrow. Wow.
Tomorrow. They've moved it forward tomorrow, I believe, Charlie, because there's a threat of rain. So they've moved it forward to 4 p.m. UK time. It was due to start, I believe, at 8 p.m. UK time originally, but they've moved it forward due to possibility of weather tomorrow. But so it's qualifying Saturday and then qualifying Sunday as well, because I think Sunday is the Fast 12 as well. This will set the grid for the Indianapolis 500, which will be a week on and 2 days from now, Charlie. The big race itself. Next weekend, Charlie, it's going to be a historic one because it's the day where it's a very traditional historic race weekend, and the Monaco Grand Prix is next weekend, the Indy 500 next weekend, and the Coca-Cola 600 is also on next weekend. It's a very traditional big race day in America, and Monaco as well next week, Charlie. It's one of the best weeks in motorsport that you can ever imagine. The Monaco Grand Prix, Indy 500, Coca-Cola 600. It's a big old racing week next week, Charlie, and there's going to be a lot to look forward to.
Yeah, we'll be reviewing the grid, some of the grid for the Indy 500 qualifying next week. Fast 12 on Sunday. Last year, Will Power nearly even missed out qualifying for that event, so he hopes to go better this year. Now, moving on to Charlie's good news. More later on, Eurovision, one of my nominations, is on there for the Great British Star. But moving on now to the great good news this week. It's Britain's Got Talent, guys. Tomorrow, I'll be tuning in to watch the rest of the action because the live shows are on very soon. They are going to be launching during the half term over the Jubilee week. And we're going to go through some of the golden buzzer racks that have been picked for this year's, all the golden buzzer racks for this year's show. Here we go. Here are the golden buzzer racks that have made the show this year. So who are they? First one, is Lauren Alred, who was Amanda Holden's golden buzzer during the first week of the show. Fans were actually shocked to find out, though, that she was the voice behind Jenny Lynn's character Rebecca Ferguson's groundbreaking Never Enough song, which actually was featured on The Greatest Showman.
Yeah.
And this act here certainly delivered in very stunning vocals, which Amanda Holden actually thought was brilliant enough to be a golden buzzer act. Then we had Simon Cowell's pick, which was Axel Blake, 33-year-old comedian, apparently used a stand-up routine, joking about his newborn Pfizer nickname, Pfizer, as a newborn pandemic baby. Simon praised the funny guy, saying the comedian needed acts like him after a difficult couple of years in the pandemic. Children's Author David described him as brilliantly funny and original as well. Next up, we had Born to Perform. A lot of people have spoken to me about these. These are a group of people who have Down syndrome. Some of them do. All autistic. The dance troupe from Northampton consists of people with disabilities between 14 and 24. They left Amanda and Alicia in tears with a brilliant routine of You Can't Stop the Beat from the musical Hairspray. And David Williams pressed the golden buzzer for them. Now, Another one was Kelechi Azwali. He was awarded the 4th golden buzzer on the show. I have to say, Anton Deck, very interesting pick. They should have gone with a magician just in the show recently, who actually I thought blew me away with some magic. Superstar magician, wild judges in his audience with unique illusions, even managing to get a ring to float across the stage and onto Alicia Dixon's finger as well. And finally, Flint and Taylor were a rapping duo that Alicia Dixon pressed the golden buzzer for. Zach, what do you make of the golden buzzer acts this year?
Lorraine Alley, let's start with her first. Wow, I obviously, that was a name to me, Charlie, that came extremely recognisable once I heard it. Because she actually did feature in The Greatest Showman and sang one of the songs as well, Never Enough. So it's surprising that she decided, out of years of forgetting her, that she decided to pop on Britain's Got Talent and, sing that little song again. I mean, it's a good song, nevertheless, Charlie. I actually don't mind The Greatest Showman. I thought it'd be one of those sort of films I dislike, but I actually watched it and I thought it was really good, actually, Charlie, as well. The Axel Blake one was brilliant, hilariously funny, Charlie, no doubt about it. It was just brilliant. It was funny, it was entertaining, it was just everything that you wanted to need out of him, Charlie. It was brilliant to watch. A very good guy as well. It was just brilliant to listen to, and cracked a couple of laughs listening to him as well. Right, let's move on to Born to Perform. This is just one of those special acts, Charlie. People with Down syndrome and autistic, these people that sort of get overlooked in society and sort of, sort of given the cold shoulder, Charlie. And it's special to see that a group of people like this perform their heart out and just, no wonder why they pressed the judges, Charlie, because they were just outstanding. That was beautiful, nevertheless, Charlie. And the other one, the Kiichi Gilawaski, I can't pronounce him, but never mind.
Yeah.
Doing the magic tricks and putting a ring, doing magic with a ring over Amanda's finger, Charlie. Oh, it's incredible, wasn't it, Charlie? It was brilliant, wasn't it? That was what you call pure magic. Now, I have to say, I've liked some of the scary acts, Charlie, but this was an example of what a good act was. That was absolutely fabulous. That really was. And it was incredibly entertaining as well, Charlie. And then there's Flint and Taylor as well, with an absolute belter of a performance, Charlie. It was just brilliant. It was a classic, great duo. They gelled well, they were brilliant, and they deserve the golden button, no doubt about it, Charlie.
Mm-hmm. He reminded me a bit of Drake, I have to say, the rapper Flint. He kind of I don't know if it was like Drake or Kanye West.
Yeah.
It kind of reminded me of him a little bit. The way he rapped some of them vocals just reminded me massively of him.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The rapping is a trend these days, Charlie. It's been a trend for many years now, but this is one of them, Charlie. No, it will continue to be quite trendy because we, younger generation, listen to a lot of grime, R&B, hip hop these days. that you may not exactly like. I know probably not exactly your type of choice, Charlie, but it's our generation of listening. This is the time of listening that our generation listen to, and this is the sort of thing that they will want to enjoy and stream. They'll get them hits on the radio and on Spotify as well when they come to the official charts. So yeah, that's the sort of thing that people like me like these days.
Yeah, well, Britain's Got Talent will return tomorrow about 8 o'clock on ITV. And of course, the live shows will begin, I believe, the week after. I was actually going to try and book some tickets for that, but I don't know if there's any left. But I'll tell you what, a lot of people, I'm sure hundreds of people will be watching that event. Some might even make the trip up to the Hammersmith Apollo in London to watch semi-finals and finals, which is going to be in 1 week. Anton Depp presenting the show in some pretty interesting suits. Outfits will be watched during the week. Now, we're going to move on now to the papers. I think we will have the latest news. I'm going to refresh my page.
Already, Charlie, I think, as well. So
yes, we have Saturday's national newspapers out already because it's the time of the night. It is now just gone 10 o'clock, which means tomorrow's papers are coming out by the dozen. Here we go. Here is tomorrow's papers for you now. The Daily Telegraph goes for Truss will give Moldova weapons to stop Putin. That's to do with Russia's advance in Donbass. The Daily Star goes for the wish list. Chancellor keeps telling us the health cost and living crisis as well. Is Rishi Sunak in trouble here? Royal family secretly houses refugees. That is to do with people coming across from Ukraine who are fleeing the war. Actually, I spoke to someone at my work placement today who said his family, his great-grandparents are coming over here and are seeking refuge from Ukraine. I have to say, in my view, that's a good thing given the war in Ukraine has been horrible. And we've also got the I Weekend, which goes for a mutiny. It's been what is faced Prime Minister Boris Johnson, Chancellor Rishi Sunak, over Britain's cost of living crisis. So what do you make of the current newspapers being released at the moment?
Yeah, let's go through them individually, starting at the top, Charlie. But let's start with the Daily Telegraph, Charlie, because they go on. I've lost my way. Here we go. There we are. So the Daily Telegraph goes on the fact that Liz Truss gives an interview to the Telegraph and says we'll give Moldova weapons to stop Putin because Moldova is basically within Ukraine, if you like to say that, Charlie. They're like the pretty much the tiniest country that are basically next door neighbours to Ukraine, Charlie. And they are also because Ukraine's in the firing line, Charlie. Then Ukraine, Ukraine's in the firing, and Moldova will be the same as well. It's like a tiny little country, Charlie. That's right next to Ukraine. Someone like Odessa, for example, as well. And I think what this is suggesting, Charlie, is that Moldova could be next on the list of Putin's targets. Because if they go for Ukraine, they'll probably take Moldova as well. So the foreign secretary is basically saying, because they're a threat, they're being threatened with, we're going to give them weapons so that they can self-defend themselves with. A bit like what they've been doing with Ukraine, Charlie, throughout this overall. The Daily Star goes for the fact that the Rishi Sunak has appeared in the top 200 people on the Times Rich list, Charlie. They are the 222nd richest person, the Sunaks in Britain, Charlie. Now, you may not think that's not really much, but bloody hell, that is, Charlie. They are worth, I think, it was something like the 800 million. Actually, wasn't it 800 million or something like that? They're worth something 100 million, something like that. 730 million, Charlie, they have in fortune. They had, Charlie. It's incredibly out of touch to see him making £730 million in fortune, Charlie, whilst we're all old duffers suffering a cost of living crisis who can barely afford to pay a bit of food, Charlie. So it's
I have to say, this headline really is interesting. Monkeypox is going bananas.
Yes, as well. Monkeypox is going bananas. I'll mention that later as well, Charlie. It is going bananas, literally. And I can see the reference because monkeys do eat bananas. And I have actually eaten banana sandwiches over the last couple of days, Charlie. So I don't think I am at risk, but who knows? But yeah, monkeypox is going bananas. This is the fact that there's been obviously a new strain, this Charlie, that is going around and infecting people. Now, this is not COVID. The one, let's me be clear, we're not going to get national lockdowns or because of it, Charlie. There's no chance of that. But it's more obvious that you'll get monkeypox. You'll tell when you get monkeypox more obviously than, say, COVID, Charlie, because you get all these nasty, gritty, spotty things that come up your body, Charlie. I'm okay for now, by the way. So, yeah. But it doesn't appear to have killed anyone yet. It just makes you a bit ill. And I think from what the science is suggesting, this lasts for potentially 2 to 4 weeks. So it lasts longer than COVID, but it doesn't exactly make you sick. So it just makes you feel a bit rashy, a bit fevery.
Stop the lockdowns is what we want.
Oh, we won't get to that point, Charlie. But there was 11 new cases today, Charlie, of monkeypox in the UK as well. And it spread to other countries as well, Charlie. I think the WHO have convened a meeting today. An emergency meeting today to discuss this, Charlie, which is very rare because the last time they did this, remember, Charlie, they did it for COVID.
Yeah.
So when that started spreading around, so yeah, I don't panic too much. I would say quite yet because it's not, I don't think we should be right too much yet, Charlie. Let's just say that. The Daily Express goes for a quite lovely story, Charlie. Well, the fact that they're reporting that the royal family are secretly housing refugees. This is presumably from Ukraine, presumably, Charlie, I would have thought.
Yeah.
That they're housing, which for a rich family, Charlie, this is actually really nice. I think this makes them go up my estimations a lot more, Charlie. The fact they are doing this because they are actually seeking sanctuary from those fleeing Ukraine, Charlie, and they've decided not to reveal this, which is understandable. They don't have to reveal it, Charlie, but they are housing people in the richest states possible to seek shelter. And that's just lovely, Charlie. This is a lovely, really nice story of the royals providing some good service to the United Kingdom, Charlie. They obviously don't name who they are, but I'm really pleased to see this, Charlie. It's good. It's good service that they've been doing with this. The eye goes for the fact that Johnson and Sunak face new cabinet meeting over cost of living. They have senior Tories have said that under David Cameron and George Osborne, we always had a long-term economic plans. It ultimately suggested we knew what we were doing. So it suggests that number 10 don't know what they're doing, Charlie. In other words, they have faced the reality of cost of living for a long time now, Charlie. As well, and it's not really a surprise to be fair, Charlie, because the public are really not buying the fact that the economy is not doing very good at all, and then they're absolutely drooling the Conservative support.
Inflation has gone up as well, massive inflation.
Inflation's gone up to 9%, Charlie, from 7% a month ago, Charlie. That's quite something. It's very likely now, Charlie, that we will hit 10% at some point. We don't know when, but we will hit 10% at some point, Charlie. That's worse than the United States by America, by the way. Their inflation went down a week or two ago, just by a little smidge, but it's still too high. But nevertheless, Charlie, inflation is now higher in the United Kingdom than it is in the United States. So that is very right. And we produce less economic output in the United States. That's a very right overall, Charlie, as well. It's a terrible situation in as well. I noticed you're finished at the end. That's finished there, Charlie. But let me go through some other papers that I have on tomorrow's papers, Charlie. I'm having to use my phone, unfortunately, for this as well. The Mirror have, let me go through the Guardian is led with revealed police chief to apologise for racism. Police being racist? Crikey, I have to say, Charlie. They will apologise for racism, discrimination and bias still plaguing law enforcement. The Guardian have learnt, Charlie. They're going to launch their new race plan on Tuesday to avoid institutional racism as well. And they will vow to try entry that black people find stigmatizing and humiliating. the fact that this is a problem within the police, Charlie, is deeply shocking, I must say. It is very concerning, nevertheless, Charlie, as well. It's very bad, nevertheless, Charlie. The times go for rail strike chaos looms soon, Charlie. This is on the news that unions are threatening the biggest train staff walkout in history, Charlie. As well. And it could leave the Rail, Marine and Transport Workers Union is balloting its 440,000 members on Tuesday. That could result in strike action, Charlie, and could bring the Network Rail to a halt, basically, as well, Charlie. They've said that they are coordinating the RMT they could introduce emergency measures. Contingency members have been prepared for freight trains, take over passengers' duties, and there could be times where tracks are reserved for goods. This is very concerning, nevertheless, Charlie, that we could have the biggest walkout in trains history. That could be a big disruption for ordinary people who want to use the travel over the holidays. And nevertheless, Charlie, there's going to be disruptions over the holidays, Charlie, because we've got Whitsun holiday coming up. And we've got
unusual headline from the Daily Mail, this one, for a pro-Boris Johnson paper.
So normally the Tory supporting paper, Charlie, have gone for not so Tory supporting headline. They've gone for fixed cost of living crunch to lose election. He's been told that he must get a grip with the cost of living or he will lose the next election on poll warn today, Charlie. Voters want immediate action to help struggling families, including bringing forward tax cuts. This is according to a survey for the Daily Mail. There's also a huge fall of support, Charlie, for a windfall tax on oil and gas profits, Charlie. This is something that the Labour Party have been consistently pushing for. The Conservative Party have still refused to do this, Charlie, and they're losing the argument on this, Charlie. No doubt about it. There's massive support for a windfall tax on oil and gas firms, Charlie, who are making massive profits as well. Maybe we need to tax Rishi Sunak as well, by the way, at this rate as well, because he seems to be making massive profits on making the Sunday Times rich list as well, Charlie. Maybe we need to tax as well, I think, on that. My suggestion as well. But that's a significant headline, nevertheless, Charlie, from the Daily Mail. And that's pretty much it, I believe, as well, Charlie, on tomorrow's papers as well.
Yeah. One of the headlines last week, hottest day of the year, over 27 degrees got recorded on Tuesday in Heathrow. Hottest day of the year, for sure. Thankfully, I was working that day. Right, moving on to the Great British Stars and Red Devils of the week. I'm going to start with my nominations. I'm going to start with my Great British Stars. My first nomination goes to Sam Ryder for coming second place in the Eurovision Song Contest. We went from Nil Poit in 2021 with James Newman with the song Embers to a song with this new song, Superman, which now ends up being second. Ukraine won the event. Slava Ukraini is what message tonight. Glory to Ukraine because they won the contest. And I have to say, what they're going through at the moment, it is horrible, and we commend them for winning. Also, this one as well, I just wanted to quickly give a mention to this people here, scientists discovering a breakthrough method of making, and I quote this now to you, advanced, if we can get this up here, advanced electronics with H2O. This nomination comes through as a very important one. Quickly emphasizing what this is. Water is a secret ingredient in a simple way, using solar cells. The next generation of semiconductors and LEDs made using what they call perovskittles, an exciting way to using crystal structure. Now, excellence in exciting science has found a new way simple way to control the growth of these phase pure precipitate crystals by harnessing water as a positive factor. These were the people of the ARC Centre for Excellence who have came up with this idea. I have to say, the invention from the ARC Centre of Excellence, our scientists discovering breakthrough method of making advanced electronics, wins my nomination for the Great British Star of the Week. For me, the Red Devils, there are tons of them this week. I have to say Russian. Not right. Say, well, one of them has to go to somebody today who committed a tube strike where he put a machete in someone's face. I think you might all know who I'm talking about there because there was an incident on our London tubes today. The news regarding a machete strike. The criminal who was involved with that wins my recognition. It was a machete attacker. The name of the person is Ricky Morgan, who is potentially going to be facing a life sentence. He made an attack on a James Pirrot on a train on the 9th of July last year. Hopefully, he'll be facing a prison sentence as well. Other nominations for me this week, well, there are tons, if you ask me. Russia for their continued aggression in Ukraine. Nicola Sturgeon wins a nomination for her pointless trip to Washington over the independence. But also, Nicola Sturgeon today has just announced that she has tested positive for coronavirus. That is a completely different story. I do wish her a speedy recovery because coronavirus is a lot worse than going away. She should be fine with COVID. I know it's not mild now, but Nicola Sturgeon's pointless visit. Nancy Pelosi gets a nomination for comments made about the Northern Ireland Protocol, saying that she threatens to block US and UK trade talks. And plenty of other nominations on the list. You can go from Vladimir Putin as well for gripping a table, sparking health concerns. Zach, what do you make to my nominations this week?
I agree with some of them. I mean, certainly the machete guy. What the hell was he thinking of? Terrible stuff anyway, Charlie. I'm going to move on now to my nominations for the British Star and Red Devil for this week, Charlie. I'm going to give the British Star to NASA this week, Charlie, because they've launched this week a Boeing CST-1 Starliner into orbit. They're heading for the International Space Station, Charlie, following the launch on the first of the next generation spacecraft on a United Launch Alliance Atlas V rocket, on a mission designed to test the end-to-end capacity of the crew-capable system as part of NASA's Commercial Crew Program. Charlie, they've been waiting for this for quite a long time, Charlie. It's been consistently delayed. But now they managed this to on, I think it was Thursday, Charlie, they managed to be able to take off and get this rocket up and going, Charlie. So fair play to NASA for finally getting this rocket through as well, Charlie. As well, it's great to see that certainly as well. The Red Devil this week, Charlie, I'm not even going to give it. Do you know what? It's weird, Charlie. I'm not even going to give it to human this week. I'm going to give the Red Devil this week to the virus that is monkeypox. Because I've had enough of hearing about viruses and all that sort of thing. But for God's sake, I keep hearing about this monkeypox. And this is the Red Devil this week because it appears to be that nasty little spotty thing is going around and spreading rather nasty little illnesses to people at the moment, Charlie. I mean, for God's sake, how many more viruses can we get in our life? So the Red Devil this week doesn't go to human, but it does affect humans, Charlie. It goes to the monkeypox disease. God's sake, please stop. We've had COVID already. We don't need monkeypox. I mean,
go to North Korea and find out.
whoever's not cleaning the monkeys, do a better job at keeping them clean and healthy and everything like that. Because you animals are spreading all this nasty sort of things to us, and now they're starting to mutate again. So they're spreading everywhere and getting all these nasty spots as well, Charlie, as well. So monkeypox gets the Red Devil this week, and the NASA crew gets the British Star of this week.
Zach, if you were to choose a person, who would you choose as the worst performer?
I would give it to the person who went around killing people in Buffalo, New York this week. I'd certainly give it to him.
I heard about that. Yeah, that's horrible.
For indiscriminating killing black people in Buffalo. Now, Buffalo, Charlie, has the biggest black population in New York. And this person who killed it had a 180-page racist manifesto of just total white supremacy and great replacement theory nonsense, Charlie. And it is clear to me that he was deliberately racially targeting black people. And a community has been really hit by this, Charlie, because this is a terrorism act and a white nationalist terrorist incident as well, Charlie. So Yeah, so if I give it to human, then it'll go to the killer of the indiscriminatory killing of innocent black people in a shopping centre in New York. It's totally not on Charlie. It's a racially motivated attack, and it just makes the black people feel marginalised and not welcome in these sort of communities, Charlie. And that's not what we want to see.
No, and I condemn the violence, what happened in Buffalo, New York. Just going to say earlier in the show that attack in the United States was horrendous. I condemn any action that is taken by this crime, by any crime that happens around the world, especially in the US, New York, that part, horrible area. And the person, I think, should be jailed for life for that, and jailed for a long time. Well, that's it for the Charlie Tolhurst show tonight. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you again next week, next Saturday, for more action on the Charlie Tolhurst show. And yes, take care and enjoy your weekend. Goodbye.